Is this the best mud terrain tire that you've never heard of? What's up, guys? Today we're talking about my tires, the Armstrong Desert Dog MT. We've all heard of companies like Nitto, BFG, Mickey Thompson, but is there another tire out there that can give these big names a run for their money? So I've been running these same tires for 3 years now, and I think it's finally time to tell you guys all about it. Alright, so at this point, you guys are probably saying to yourself, what the heck are you talking about, Tyler? A good mud tire that I've never heard of before? And I'm just going to go ahead and say, if you actually have heard of this tire before, please prove me wrong in the comments right now. If you are a super old school wheeler, you've probably heard of this name before, but the tire probably looked a lot like this one right here. This tire right here used to be one of the most popular tires for wheelers way back in the day, but they have been discontinued for several years by now. And many years went by, and another company came about and said, hey, I want to bring back this legacy and see if we can continue this and make something good out of it that fits into the modern mud terrain world. And here is what they did. First things first, we obviously have to talk about this tread pattern. As you can see here, this thing is super meaty. I don't know how well the camera puts it into perspective, but these lugs are ginormous. So first, let's go ahead and point out a couple of the unique details about these tires. If you know anything about Armstrong as a company, their logo is a rhinoceros. So if you look close here, you'll actually see hints of horns all throughout these tires, and that is just one of the few details that make these things super unique. Then if we go ahead and take a look at all of these little ridges that are hidden throughout the entire tire, you might be wondering what exactly those are. And those are designed specifically to help eject mud and rocks and keep things from being lodged inside this tread. And I will tell you from my personal experience, it has worked phenomenally. I never have rocks get clogged in here. And I've run some ATs in the past that are constantly being full of rocks and flinging them into the wheel wells. Then if we go ahead and look over at the sidewall here, this is actually super aggressive as well. This is a super unique design that you don't see in all the other tires. And as you know, a quality mud tire has got to have a meaty sidewall. All right, let's go ahead and take a seat. Okay, here's the deal. So now that you guys know what we're talking about here, like I've said, I've had these tires for 3 years now, and what you guys really want to know is, what do I think? What are my personal experiences? So in this video, I'm going to go ahead and talk about 4 different things, and I'm also going to give some demonstrations for a couple of them, so you guys can be the judge for yourselves if these tires are worth it and if they're going to perform well for what you want. So the 4 things we're going to talk about: 1, off-road performance, obviously. 2, road noise. If you guys are getting off-road tires, not everyone has a trailer and trailers their rig to the trails every single time. A lot of times you want to go out and drive to the trail, or you also just drive on the road in general. You don't want tires that are like boggers or Nitto mud grapplers that are going to be insanely loud on the road and drive you crazy. So we're going to talk about that. What do I think of road noise? 3, tread wear. I feel like the most common question with just about any single tire on the market is how well the tread wears over time. Then lastly, a huge thing that tends to get missed sometimes with off-road tires is how well the sidewall flexes. This one is for all you rock crawler guys, and I know that's what you're really going to be wondering about these mud terrain tires. Are they just good in mud? Do they just look good? Or do they actually perform? Do these sidewalls flex, and are they going to bite on those rocks? Then one last thing I want to talk about at the end that isn't necessarily part of my personal experience, but how true do these tires actually measure to size? These are rated to be a 35, 12.5, 17. let's go ahead and measure that. So first up, Offroad Performance. What do I think of that? Well, that is basically all I've used these tires for since I've owned them for 3 years. These things have been through every single terrain that at least Michigan has to offer. So that obviously includes things like mud, rocks, sand, and snow. Here in Michigan, we tend to get a lot of rain, and in the spring when everything melts, things also get really wet. So that means we have a lot of mud around here. So I've had several opportunities to get these things out and drive into mud. And I'll tell you, these are definitely the definition of a mud terrain. These things have never once failed me, and they always do a great job of clearing the mud out, making sure you always have traction. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do I think these perform from my experiences? I'm gonna go ahead and give these a solid 9. I would say 10, but I do not do things like a mud bog or anything that's too crazy, getting in nasty mud pits and clay, things like that. I just avoid that with my Jeep.
You sure about that? You sure about that?
So I'm not gonna go ahead and give these a perfect 10 because I'm sure there's tires like a bogger or like tractor tires that are going to be much better in terrain like that. But in terms of having a quality DOT tire, I think this is a great option. All right, number 2, road noise. This is a huge one for these tires. As I showed you guys earlier, and as you can see right here, these things are super meaty, super aggressive, giant lugs, and usually what that means is really loud on the road too. You kind of have a bit of a compromise when you're looking at off-road tires, where you get good off-road performance or good on-road performance. If you're going to have good on-road performance, your tread is designed for the road. So obviously, once you get out in things like mud and rocks, you're not really going to have the bite that you want. But on the other hand, you have an off-road tire, and it's going to have all of those things. But then you get out on the road, and maybe it doesn't have as good of siping or as good of grooves, and it's not always designed to be quiet when cruising at highway speeds on the road. But I'm just going to go ahead and say these are surprisingly one of the quietest mud terrains I've ever had. I've run Goodyear MTRs, the BFG KO2, Milestar Patagonia, and then these. So in terms of road noise, when it comes to those 4 tires from my experiences, I would put these things basically 1 notch below the BFG KO2s. And the KO2, as you know, is an all-terrain tire, so obviously it's going to be quite a bit quieter on the road. And this thing is super aggressive, and you would think it would be extremely loud, but it's actually only 1 notch louder than the BFG, in my opinion. I would also say it is probably super similar to the road noise that you get out of a Milestar. So if you're someone that's running Milestars right now, I would expect these to about sound the same as those. And after we finish talking through these 4 topics, I'm going to go ahead, get this out on the road, and I'm going to show you guys exactly how quiet these tires are. So overall, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would I rank these tires on road noise? I'm going to go ahead and rank these in the category of mud terrain tires and not just all around, because obviously a highway tire is going to be so much better. So in the category of mud terrain tires, I'm going to go ahead and give these an 8 because I've experienced so many other tires that are so much louder than these, and these really impressed me with how quiet they are on the road. All right, number 3, tread wear. How have these tires worn for me over the past 3 years of driving? So I'm going to go ahead and just say, over 3 years of driving, 99% of that was off-road. So I don't necessarily have the best judgment when it comes to how well these tires are wearing over several thousands of miles, but I have driven long distances with these, and I've probably put between 5,000 and 10,000 miles on them, other than some nicks from driving off-road, you can't hardly tell that these things have worn at all. This tire right here that I'm sitting on is the spare that has never once been mounted on the Jeep. And if I cleaned up the tires on my Jeep, put these things side by side, you would hardly be able to notice the difference. I also should note that in terms of tread wear, these things have also been wearing super even. Between all four of my tires, none of them have any wear on either side or in the middle. And a lot of that is obviously going to be regarding your alignment or your tire pressure that you're running in terms of what vehicle you're driving. But I still think it's really important to note that I don't have any weird kind of choppiness and no sort of weird vibrations cruising down the road. And I've taken this thing 80 miles an hour down the expressway, no problem. But again, as I've said, since most of these miles were driven off-road, I don't necessarily want to be the one to claim that these are going to last longer than any other mud terrain tire out there, because I just don't have that level of experience with them quite yet. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how exactly would I rate these tires in terms of tread wear? I'm going to go ahead and give these an 8 again, just based on my experience, but also I'm giving it that little bit extra notch just because these tires also have a fantastic warranty. If you are not happy with them, or if you have any sort of issues, they will cover any issues you guys have for up to 6 years, which I think is insane. They also have a 30-day money-back guarantee. So I feel like for a tire that you've never heard of before, something that's not one of the big names, that's something you don't usually get, just because they are putting their money on the line for the quality of these tires. So I'm going to give it a little bit extra notch there too, just to help support why I give it an 8. All right, last on my list, Sidewall Flex. This one, like I said, super important to you rock crawlers. When you guys are airing these tires down to 10, 5, 0 PSI if you're running beadlocks, and that is especially important with this tire size here, because in the 35, 12.5, 17, this comes in a load range E, which means it's a light truck tire. And usually what that means is you have heavily reinforced sidewalls designed for high load ratings, and that also usually translates to where you have a stiff sidewall and it doesn't flex very well for off-road. But in order to rate the Sidewall Flex, this is something I want you guys to decide. So this is a super easy demonstration, and I want to try several different air pressures in these while I'm crawling over something, and you guys can see for yourselves how well this sidewall is going to flex. And then I want you guys to be the judge and let me know in the comments, what would you rate these on a scale of 1 to 10 in comparison to all other off-road tires that are out in the market today, especially knowing that these are load range E tire. So now that we've covered everything from my list, let's go ahead and move on to some demonstrations and show you guys exactly how good these are. Then you guys let me know in the comments, what would you rate these tires? All right, for the first Sidewall Flex test, let's go ahead and see what we're running these at right now. Looks like we are almost right on the dot at 30 PSI. So let's go ahead and get started at 30 and work our way down. So we're now at 5 psi, and that's about where most people that would be rock crawling would actually be running. And I'd say for a low range E tire, we got some flex. That is pretty impressive. All right, now I'm gonna go ahead and do a quick road test. I'm gonna get this thing up to about 60 miles an hour, and I'm gonna do the best I can and see if I can catch the audio using this lapel mic here. I'm not entirely sure if this is gonna pick it up clearly, but if not, I'll try my best to kind of explain how much road noise I'm actually getting. I'm gonna do this test with the windows up, because obviously if the windows are down, you're just gonna get a lot of wind noise in the mic. So let's get out on the road. There are deer crossing the road. Little baby deer. All right, I guess let's do this again. All right, there's 60 miles an hour, and we are in overdrive. So I definitely can hear the tires, but it's like the slightest hum. All right, so I know that definitely wasn't the best demonstration, but I hope that at least goes to show that if the mic can barely pick it up, these tires are clearly not that loud. But yeah, again, that's why I gave them such a good rating in terms of road noise, considering how aggressive they are. Let's go ahead and measure one of these tires, see if it's true to size, get this video wrapped up. That is honestly extremely close to a true 35. I'll pull up the online spec as well, but I believe these measure barely under 35 inches. And then just because we can, let's go ahead and measure one that is sitting on the weight of the Jeep. This is a front tire, so obviously it has all the engine weight too. So this one should get the most squish out of it. Let's see where we're sitting now. Definitely a pretty big difference. This is, again, at about 30 psi. So it looks like we're measuring about like 33 and 3/4. Then it might be right about 34 inches, looks like. You can see we get a little bit of squish down here. Obviously, it's sitting with the weight of the V8 and everything, so that's about what I would expect. All right, guys, I think that officially wraps up this video. I really went out on a limb when I bought these tires here, and I had no information on them. I've never heard of them before, but looking at their website, seeing how much they backed them, I decided to take a shot and put them on my Jeep, and I have zero regrets at all. My personal opinion, these are a 10 out of 10 tire, especially considering the price. These things I got for like at least half the price of any other tire. I am super impressed with these. I am not sponsored by Armstrong Tire whatsoever. This video is strictly for informational purposes. So go ahead, let me know in the comments, what would you rate these tires, and would you be willing to put them on your rig?